Hear a just cause, O Lord. Attend to my cry. Give ear to my prayer from lips free of deceit. From you let my vindication come. Let your eyes see the right. If you try my heart, if you visit me by night, if you test me, you will find no wickedness in me. My mouth does not transgress. As for what others do, by the word of your lips, I have avoided the ways of the violent. My steps have held fast to your paths. My feet have not slipped. I will call upon you, for you will answer me, O God. Incline your ear to me. Hear my words. Wondrously show your steadfast love. O Saviour of those who seek refuge from their adversaries at your right hand. Guard me as the apple of the eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings.
In today's reading, the psalmist cries out to God. It's a real cry from their heart. Hear a just cause, O God. Attend to my cry. It's an incredible thing to think that we might be able to call out of our distress to God. But it's more than a spiritual thing. It's also a political act. Psalm 17 is not the only incident where human beings cry out to God. Think of the Boney M song, "By the rivers of Babylon, there we wept when we remembered Zion." It's a version of Psalm 137, and the exiles were distressed to have been uprooted and enslaved. Or think of the Exodus. Before Moses led God's people out of Egypt, they cried out to God in their despair for the injustices that were being heaped upon them. But crying out to God is not just a spiritual act, it's a political one also. When we cry out to God, we're also naming the cause of our distress. The exiles named the cause of their distress, that they were in captivity. God's people before the Exodus named the cause of their distress, that they were being harshly treated by Pharaoh and Pharaoh's people. The psalm today finishes with the psalmist asking God to hide them under the shadow of God's wings and to treat them as an apple of God's eye. But the psalm doesn't end there. In fact, it gets even more pointed. The documentary maker David Attenborough has a saying that if you put red ants and black ants in a jar, they'll happily coexist. But if you shake the jar, they'll start fighting each other. It seems that they blame each other for the shaking. Of course, what the ants should be doing is asking the question, who shook the jar? And why are we in the jar in the first place? So this week, I'm wondering whether you might like to read Psalm 17 or maybe Psalm 137. Perhaps you'd like to read the opening chapters of the book of Exodus and see how God's suffering people called out to God in those days. Perhaps you are outraged that some people will find it difficult to heat their homes or feed their families this winter. Maybe you're outraged at the levels of violence against women and girls. Maybe you know someone who's subject to racial prejudice because for some reason they're not thought white enough. Or maybe their religion is thought to be the problem. Maybe you or some of your friends are not quite straight enough and you get trolled online or passed over for professional development. Whatever your outrages are, take them to God in prayer this week. But don't forget to ask the hard questions. Who put us in the jar and who shook it? And maybe you could use your anger to resolve to do something about these injustices, because that is a holy task.